So, hello everybody. I'm Andrea Nenadic, psychotherapist and social worker. And today we have our second webinar, which topic is about sexuality and intimacy. Uh, I would like to start from sexuality and how often sexuality is connected with questions: who do you like, with who you have sex, or how often you have it. But sexuality is much more than that. Sexuality is about feelings, thoughts, and behaviors toward other people. We can find other people physically, sexually, or emotionally attractive, and all of those things are actually part of sexuality. Sexuality is a form of communication, of expressing our personality to another person. It doesn't have to be an expression of our body, but is the way I present myself, depending on how I see myself. And usually we say that how I can feel attractive or how I can love someone if I don't love myself. So sexuality is diverse and extremely personal, and it represents important part of who we are. Discovering our sexuality can be really deliberating and exciting and positive experience. Most important is that sexuality refers to a person's sexual orientation or preference. When we speak about sexuality, it's connected with the first question, like people ask us who we love or who we are attracted to. And yes, that's important part to know if we are attracted to same gender or opposite one, or if we are not attracted at all. And I think that our inner truth is what is the most important. And connected with this, sexuality is about what feels right for us and what makes us happy. And it's not, it shouldn't be conforming to the expectations of other people. It is hard to not connect our sexuality with other people and messages, beliefs from outside, but I would like with this webinar to support you to follow yourself and to really feel free to give sexuality your personal note. Sexuality is about how I can enjoy my physical body, my emotional self, and my romantic self. And it can be with or without sharing myself with another people. For most of us, sexuality exists whether or not we are sexually active. Usually we connect sexuality with having sex with another person, but it can be and it is highly personal experience, and it can be shared just with ourselves. Every person is a sexual being and has sexual thoughts, attitudes, desires, fantasies. And when we have person who have some chronic condition, it is hard to keep that sexuality alive. But what is truth is that disability doesn't change sexuality or desire to express it. For example, World Health Organization says that sexuality is a basic need and aspect of human being that cannot be separated from other areas of our life. When we go, for example, we can explore sexuality in therapy. And for example, clients can come with, for example, not having sexual desire or having problems with orgasm. And what we do, we usually go deeper into person experience. And what can be like three main factors that are connected with sexual dysfunctions are sexual transfer with our parents, lack in early attachment, and resistance to enjoyment. I wouldn't like to speak more about this because I think that these are really deep things and that are connected with one concrete person. I just wanted to mention how in therapy we see what are the reasons or causes of sexual dysfunctions. Further on, when we speak about sexuality, as I said, it is a combination of our body, of our mind, of our thoughts, fantasies, desire. But what is common in our society is that sexuality is extremely connected with body, and body is home where all messages and expectation from society are found. And it is hard if we have some kind of different body, or if our body image is not appropriate to standards, cultural standards or society standards. And it is hard to let ourselves to show our body and enjoy in our body if it is not approved from society. And I've read some research that show that people with a positive body image had higher sexual function compared to people who have a negative body image. And there is a relationship between sexual function and perception of body image. So sexual desire or orgasm are improved as body image increase. So the relationship between people's perception of body image and sexual function is big, and concern of people about how other people may evaluate their body can significantly affect sexual activity and sexual life. And those concerns are connected with social, cultural, and ethnic factors. So I would like to invite you to think about pressure that comes from society about how your body should look like, or what happens if your body doesn't fit the cultural norms, and to try to work on positive body image, because it really affects how connected we are with our own bodies, and later on how we can connect with other people. Jib, do you have some question or?
Nothing yet.
Oh, okay. Because I saw that you turn on the microphone.
Yeah, just noisy background.
Oh, okay. This first part is connected with sexuality, and now I would like to bring on intimacy and how it can be connected with sexuality. So intimacy and sexuality are pretty connected. Connected because in both terms we have some kind of openness. Like when we want to be sexual or have something sensual with someone, we need to be open in order to show our body, etc. So intimacy includes vulnerability, openness, and sharing, and it is often present in close, loving relationships. And this term of intimacy often is used to refer to sexual interaction, but intimacy doesn't have to be sexual. It is important to separate emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy. For example, emotional intimacy is when we feel safe to share our feelings with others, even those ones that are uncomfortable. And sexual intimacy is when we are engaged in sensual or sexual activities with other person. Intimacy in a romantic relationship is usually something that is built over the time, and it's a process that needs to include time, experience, and everything that we passed with our partner. So intimacy requires patience and communication. What is important for intimacy is that it can help us feel more loved and less alone. But intimacy often includes a really big deal of trust and vulnerability. And for some people, this is extremely scaring, and that's why a lot of people struggle with two needs. One is to be close and intimate with partner, and the second one is to, because of fear, to just isolate themselves and stay alone. In therapy, a common concern is this conflict between intimacy and fear. Some of the reasons why people or all of us have fear from intimacy comes from abandonment issues. For example, we may fear that once when we become attached to someone, that person can leave us. The second fear is fear of rejection. We are eager to think that when our partner see our imperfection, he or she will leave us and find someone else who is more perfect. Another reason is control issues. We can be afraid that getting into relationship or having intimacy with someone can affect to our independence, and that's why we try to avoid making connection and having intimacy with someone. So as I said, intimacy and sexuality are connected, but that doesn't include that if you cannot be intimate with someone if you don't have sex, or opposite, you can have sex but not feel intimate with someone. Today, what I was thinking that should be my main topic is what about disability and sexuality. I know that a lot of MPS patients have some of disabilities, and that's why I thought that this can be interesting and useful. So, having sex with someone and getting into bodily connection with other person is extremely challenging task, even for people who are who don't have any chronic condition or disability. But for people who are who have some disabilities, it's even harder. In my opinion, the hardest part is about, again, society that has many myths, and some of them are really frustrating and can affect to person's wish to, like, not even try for being sexually active. Some of these myths include that a person with disability doesn't need sex, or that you cannot have real sex, whatever that means. And some of myths include that person with disability has more important things to think about than to think about sex. Or it can be that person with disability cannot have children. So when we hear all those myths, we really start to question ourselves if we are capable to have sex and be sexual and share ourselves with another person. What we can do is to, by sharing experience and insights, we can understand that we are not alone. And by learning to appreciate each other as capable, interesting, caring people, we can immunize ourselves against negative attitudes. For a lot of able-bodied person, this topic regarding sex for people with disabilities is often taboo, and it's rarely discussed about that. And that's why I think it's important to speak about sexuality in general, plus sexuality for people who have some disabilities. Society often tends to have some perfect image of sexual attraction, and anyone, whether it's person with disability or without, who doesn't meet those criteria can feel diminished and dismissed. So that's why I say that society plays a really big part in our self-image, especially body image. So it's important to try to distract ourselves from what is social appropriate and what is not. It is hard for people with disability to be seen as non-sexual beings, and that can really cause a lot of internal, emotional, and mental problems. And information about disability and sex usually are focused on function or fertility, and they don't present real personal feelings and emotions. If myths, it's impossible that message from society doesn't affect us, but those messages can have a really big role in our life. Some people can start to avoid sex or limit their opportunities to have a sex. And for people with disabilities also, it's challenging when they don't have privacy in their house, or when they are not independent, it's hard to even think about sexuality and being sexual active if they don't build some kind of internal independency. There are some concerns relating to physical health when we speak about people who have physical disabilities. And for example, you may feel concerned about finding a partner, concerned about will your partner find you attractive, or a lack of confidence because of your sexual ability or performance, concerns about how your body can move, and about pain during sexual activities. Also, a lack of energy and desire for sex can be one of the questions that you ask yourself. And it is natural to feel frustrated about the effects of your disability on sexual life. It may help to try to accept that you and your partner have to approach the sex differently. So I think that for persons with disability, it's necessary to have some kind of creativity so that you can find different ways to satisfy each other. And if your feelings about your disability affects your sexual life, maybe you can visit some health professional who can give you information and knowledge, like what, according to your condition, what is good for you, what can have negative effects, etc. But if you have some irrational fear, visiting therapist is a good way to start to explore your own body and sexuality. According to my experience, what was useful for people with disabilities is to have really a lot information about condition and about disability, plus about sex. Because as I said, sexuality doesn't need to be connected with another person. For example, masturbation or some sexual sex aids can be useful for people with disabilities as well. And it takes energy to explore your own body and feel sexual. And some of factors that may affect your level of sexual interest of energy can be pain, can be fatigue, can be mental state, and medication. So when we speak about pain, pain really can affect to your daily life, and especially your wish to be sexually active. But distraction can sometimes be the best cure for pain. It can relieve pain when you get to that point of sexual pleasure. I think it's also important to speak about medication and how medication can affect your sexual wish or your moods or interests. So it's important sometimes to know that your personal wish doesn't have doesn't depend of you, but it depends of medication that you take. If your body doesn't always do the things it's supposed to do, especially in a sexual situation, people may assume that you don't have any sexual thoughts or feeling. But what I would like to invite you to think about is about brain, because brain is the biggest sexual organ in our body. And whether we get turned on, irrespective of the amount of sensation our body experience, this has connection with situation, person, or fantasies, and it's much more connected with that than with body's ability to behave or perform in certain way. So when we speak about sex and for people with disabilities and without disabilities, we have that kind of brain stimulation and connection with other people, even if we cannot use some organs, or we don't have we don't feel touch, for example. Our brain and our fantasies can give us pleasure. What I would like to mention more about sexuality when we speak about people with disabilities is that it is necessary to explore yourself, to really become familiar with your body, to become familiar what your body can do and what your body cannot do, and then to try to find some different creative ways to feel sexual pleasure. Also, I wouldn't like to forget people who don't feel any sexual wish or attraction. And when we have contact with therapists, with person who is asexual, it's always important to support that that person doesn't have wish for sex, but it's also important, especially when we speak about people with disability, to see if this asexuality is connected with messages and beliefs from outside, or it's internal truth for that person. So what I wanted to say more is that I would like to support you with one task. When we finish webinar, I would like you to support you to draw on paper your body and how it looks like, and to write down next to the different body parts what is positive about that. For example, you can write next to your ears like I'm a good listener, or you can paint different parts with different colors and see what is sensual for you, or where you feel pleasure. So this kind of learning what is good about our body, or what really makes us makes us satisfied, it can help when we connect with other people. Especially for people with disabilities, it's important to feel trustful with his or her partner. And this trust is actually ground to develop your sexuality and your sexual activities in a relationship. So connected with that, maybe this part of intimacy that is built on patience and communication actually can be the key for next level of being sexually active with someone else. And I would also like to remember you that sexuality is not just connected with being sexually active with another person, but it's firstly connected with us personally, who we are, what we want, how we make connection with ourselves, with our body, with our mind, and it's combination of all our aspects. So I'm trying to think about how hard it is for a person with disability who is dependent from caregiver to give herself or himself permission to take time and take place to just be alone and to explore more his or her body. So it's important to create yourself a supportive environment so that you can explore what do you like, what do you want, etc. I think that I don't, for today's webinar, that this can be enough, because this is supposed to be some kind of opening webinar to topic of sexuality, because it's really huge topic and it's connected with individuals and really personal experience. So I would like you to invite you to write me on email what are some specific topics, or what would you like to hear more concrete about this. And of course, there are a lot of differences between genders. Like if you're female, you would be more interested in one specific thing. If you're male, you would be interested in another. And it depends, of course, from physical condition. So I would really like to support you to express what is important for you and what would you like to hear more. So on MPS website, you can find my contact email, details about email, and to write what you're interested in. So that's it for today. I would like to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And we will meet next month to speak more about things and topics that you choose.